Hello friends, in today's video we are going to learn about most likely shape, or which is also known as a shape belongs to. If you have yet not subscribed to our channel, I would request to subscribe it. Also, if you like our content, please like our video and hit on the thumbs up button. This will encourage us to come up with more such good videos about the 11 plus exam. So let's get begin. So in the case of most likely shapes or the shape belongs to questions, the task is to determine which particular shape from the set fits into a group based on the shared characteristic pattern or logic. These questions are very common questions into the non-verbal reasoning section of 11 plus exam. We will be given with two shape wherein we need to identify a shape, pattern, logic, and from the five given options we need to find out which particular shape is going to fit into the group. So let's see what are the different type of examples we have in most likely shape kind of questions. So the very common type is a shape related ones, wherein we can see that there are shapes either circle, square, triangle or pentagon, and from next group of set we need to identify the similar kind of shape related image. We have also seen there are questions from curved and straight edges. Some of the questions group shapes based on whether they have curved or straight edges. Then there are questions coming from the number of sides or corners, wherein we need to count the number of sides or angles in each shape. Often these shapes are grouped based on having the same or similar number of sides. All shapes in a group might be either polygon or with more number of sides than 4. We also have seen there are questions coming from symmetry. So we need to check if shapes have a specific symmetrical pattern. It could be either horizontal, vertical, or diagonal, anything. We also see that there are questions related with the rotation or orientation. So we need to look for the shape that are rotated version of each other. They could be in rotation of either clockwise or anti-clockwise, or there could be a north, south, east, west rotation or orientation as well. We have also seen that there are questions coming from color or shading. So if the colors or shading are part of the question, then we need to examine which particular shape belongs to the group based on the consistent use of the color, shading or pattern. So in terms of coloring, it could be anything like either transparent one or gray one or the dark one, dark black one, or we could also see the hedge ones as well. There are questions related with the size. So we need to consider whether the size is given a pattern in the two sets, and based on that we need to figure out which particular shape is the most likely one. We also seen that there are questions given based on the number of shapes, wherein we need to check for the pattern in the number of shapes present. The number of shapes might be increasing or decreasing. Then not last but not the least one is the pattern specific or the line consistency one, wherein we need to check for the recurring internal patterns like either dots, lines or grids if the shapes derives from these different patterns. Now let's start looking into some of the examples. So if we look the very first example, this is coming from a shape type of question, wherein we can see that the two images which are given, they have four edges, and if we need to find out answer from this particular set of images, then obviously the circle won't fit in, the B also won't fit in. We have C, which is a square shape, this should fit in. Then we have pentagon, and then we have a different shape which should also not fit in. So ideally answer should be C option. Now let's have a look into another example. So in this particular example, we can see the number of dark shapes are matching with a total number of sides of the internal image. Here it is pentagon, so we have 5 dark circles. Here we have triangular, so we have 5, not sorry, 5, 3 ellipses, and we need to identify a solution wherein we have similar pattern. So if we see A1, we have square and we got 4 diamonds. So this should be the answer. Then let's check the other ones. Here we have hexagon, but the rectangular shapes are only 5. Similarly, here we have octagon, but the dark triangles we have only 5. Similar is the case here. It's a triangle, but we have 4 pentagons and 1 rectangle, but we have 3 dark rectangles. So the answer should be A here. Yeah, let's have a look into the few other examples. So in this particular example, if we see, it is based on the rotation or orientation. The two diagrams which are given, they also show that there is a clockwise rotation happening in inner image. So we need to find out what are the images which are having clockwise inner circle or inner shape. So if we see A is not the right answer. B can be the right answer. C is not the right answer, and D can be also right answer based on the orientation, and E cannot be the right answer. So if we see between B and D, we need to find the solution. But if you see a question here, these shapes are not in a circular format. They have straight edges. So ideally answer B is the ideal solution. Let's have a look into the next example. So this particular example is having two patterns. If we see, these are having first 6 edges. If you see here, 6 edges and 6 edges here, and in one of the flat edge there is a parallel line outside of the image. So if we go by that pattern, then A should not be the answer because it is a pentagon and there is a line, a parallel line outside a bottom surface. Then we do have hexagon, wherein we do have a line. Sorry, this is not hexagon, this is septagon. So here we have a line at the bottom, but the number of edges doesn't match. Then we do have hexagon, wherein we do have a line parallel and outside of it. Then we have different images, and here in last option E, we do have a parallel line inside, so that cannot be the also solution. So in the given options, option C is the right option. B is definitely not the right answer because there are 7 edges, not the 6 ones. So let's look into the another example. Here in this particular example is based on the color and shading. So if we see, there are two images given here, and that particular image is divided into 3 equal parts and one part is having a shading. So if we look other examples here which are given, A is not having equal division, so that cannot be the answer. If we look into the B option, B looks like the answer. Why? Because we have 3 equal division done within a hexagon, so that should be the answer. Then let's see C. C cannot be the answer because they are not equal division, even not D, even not E. So ideally B should be the right answer here. Now let's have a look of symmetrical shapes problem. So here if we see there are triangular, three triangles, and they are all pointing to each other in upward direction. Similarly, here there are shapes which are pointing in upward direction and identical shapes. So in these options, we need to find a similar pattern. So A cannot be the one because they are pointing downward. B cannot be the one because the top and bottom ones are shadowing the middle one, which is not the pattern. C cannot be the one because the center image is not a similar pentagon image. Now if we see D, D looks a little bit good. Why? Because we do have identical images and they are pointing upwards. And let's check E as well. So E is not the right one because the center image is overlapping with two others, which is not the pattern here. So ideally answer should be D. Yeah, let's move on to the next example. So this example is based on the orientation. So if you see there are two lines, one is inner line, another is outer line. The outer line is pointing towards clockwise direction and inner line is pointing towards anti-clockwise direction. Same is the case with the next image as well. The outer line is pointing in a clockwise direction and inner line is pointing towards anti-clockwise direction. So we need to identify the solution in given option. So the very first one, outer and inner both lines are pointing towards anti-clockwise, so this cannot be the answer. If we see option B also both are pointing towards the clockwise direction, so that cannot be the answer. Now let's check C. This is a correct one. Why? Because the outer shape is pointing towards clockwise and inner shape is pointing towards anti-clockwise, so which is matching with the pattern. And then the D is not because the outer is pointing towards anti-clockwise and inner is pointing towards the clockwise, which is opposite to the pattern given here. And even in E, if we see they are pointing towards the anti-clockwise direction, so that cannot be the answer. Now let's check the last example. So in this particular example we do see there is a pattern. So if we see the arrow is always pointing towards a circle, however that arrow is inside that particular image, it is not touching any sides. If we see here, and whatever the situation is always pointing towards that particular circle. And then we do also have a kind of edge forward here which is doing a anti-clockwise turn. So if we see that way, A cannot be the answer because arrow is not pointing towards circle, so that is not the answer. Now if we see B cannot be the answer because arrow is touching the outer layer of that image. If we see C is not having a proper arrow. In last of the arrow there is a line, a perpendicular line, which is not here. Then if we see option D is the answer. Why? Because it is following the perfect pattern. So the arrow is pointing towards circle and also the additional edge which is outside of this particular image which is pointing into the anti-clockwise direction. And if you see the option E cannot be the one because the arrow is touching the outer side of the image. So answer is D here. So that's all into today's video. If you like our content, please subscribe our channel and we will be coming up with a new video on 11 plus exam. Thank you.